name is Bobbi Doubthitt. I'm the general manager, and I've worked here 6 years.
My name is Steve Jones, and I've been working for Replay for the last, I think, 8 years. Pretty sure that's right. I'm at this point a lead technician and game repairman here at the building.
So I love pinball. I was totally into pinball since I was a kid. So once I found there was a place with over 60 pinball machines, I had to be there.
She had a pinball machine that was like in her room, and it was kind of just like, what are you even doing with this? Like, what is this here for? We can play this? What? And so that was like the gateway into, she's like, yeah, I also know about this place.
So it's an interesting question. For some parts of the community, retro gaming's always been a part of their life. I'd say that with the things like Nintendo Switch porting the old games, that's kind of brought a younger crowd into the building. Little kids looking for Punch-Out. I'm like, what? How do you know Punch-Out? But thank goodness for Switch porting those old games.
These kind of games, like, it always seems like it's making a resurgence, but it's hard to tell what the actuality of where the center mark is for all that. The fact that there are still younger folks coming in abundance at Replay and playing all these games, it makes it sure seem like it's like, wow, there's going to be a whole another generation that's excited about these kind of games and wants to know about the history and legacy of this stuff. And even if it's not so much the legacy of it, just like, is the game fun to play? Like, do you like playing Burger Time or whatever it might be that a kid just stepped up to and played for the first time?
So it was just in their home. It was something that they were into. They loved pinball and retro games. It sort of outgrew their living space, and they started looking for a location to have open to the public.
Yeah, so I think it started off as just something where it's like, oh, I love this game, I don't want to get rid of it. And it's really common for people to sort of trade out games in the arcade and pinball hobby, where like you acquire a game, you play it for a while, and you sort of like swap it out for another. I think in their position, they were like, well, I really love this game. I don't want to get rid of it and swap it out. I'd rather just get another one because I also love that one. As soon as I get to like step back into Replay and like see what this place was, my jaw hit the floor, and I was just like, oh wow, you can still just play a bunch of games like this, and like this is all still alive and flourishing.
Some of these games only made a few thousand or under 1,000 of them, so we might be caring for something that might be in the tens of numbers existing.
I've always been interested in games and arcade stuff in general, like since I was a kid, but honestly I never knew that this stuff was still in abundance and people still even cared about this until about that 8 or 9 year ago mark. If I can, fix a game that somebody walked in and is like, oh, that's a shame, like that game's down, and it's like, not for long, I can get this one going for you. That's always kind of a treat to be able to like make that happen for people.
So each pinball machine is going to have a different layout. The playfield will be different, and then the rule set will be different as well. So there's going to be a big difference between game to game. You are going to always have some similarities. There'll always be at least 2 flippers at the bottom, maybe a pop bumper, a 3 up top. 2 ramps are like a standard modern pinball design, but they do very, very differently game to game.
Being into music and sound design things as a primary background for me, I always focus on like how are they trying to tie in different art forms into the actual game, and that tends to what drives the theme for me. Obviously it's going to have a basis of like what it's made after, but I always kind of pinpoint like for the spinning targets or for certain things that you're hitting during the game, like what did they decide to use for that like laser effect or like whatever sounds that they decided to pick out.
It's a mixture. It depends on the title. Certain games are just going to always be well known. Anything having to do with Tommy and the Who will be a big draw. So we have Captain Fantastic. But then we have a newer game that's based on the Broadway musical Tommy. So both of those get a lot of attention. And it seems to be every demographic, all ages, like both games.
I think it really is kind of like a half and half split, because like you might recognize a newer theme and like that's going to drag you over to the game first, but like when you see a piece of history, like some of the electromechanical games that we have, there's it's hard to compare like that feeling of like, well, I'm also equally as driven to go check that game out because it's a piece of history and it's got everything unique about that the older games do.
Right next to it, Black Knight 2000 is one of my favorites. It's like my all-time. It's always my answer when people ask what my favorite is, and that's the one that I could be on a desert island with and play every day.
I like the Grand Lizard pinball machine. That's like one of my favorites here. I mentioned earlier about like sound design, and that one is older, so it has like maybe not the most advanced things you're expecting to hear, but for me it ticks every box as far as like awesome things to shoot on the playfield, great sound effects, unique background music, and the theme is kind of just mysterious.